Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pathways to Breaking the Cycle. I am your host, Kimberly, and I have some amazing guests with me tonight. We have Clifton with Millions for Prisoners. Welcome.
How you
And we
doing?
also have Diana joining us through Zoom, who is also with Millions for Prisoners. And we also have a special guest from behind the walls with us tonight. So, welcome, everybody. So happy to have you all.
Yes, thank you, appreciate it.
Awesome.
What's up, my man? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. It's good to talk to you again.
Yeah.
Well, guys, so I'm just going to give a little brief history of how I know Clifton, and we'll just get right into it. My son, at the age of 16, got involved in the streets, and I was looking for help from everybody, anywhere I could. And somebody referred me to Celinda, and I reached out to Celinda, and she said, "Come over right now." She gave me her address. That was, let's see, that was 6 years ago. That was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in your kitchen, and you guys sat me at your table, and it was you, Celinda, and you had a few friends there. And I just remember feeling so supported by all of you guys. And the first thing you said, "Well, where is he? Let's go get him right now."
Yeah, for real, that's what's up.
So it just made me feel really good, and that was my very first experience with community supporting me, and it was a beautiful experience. I left from your house feeling like, wow, okay, I'm getting somewhere now,
Yeah, most
you know.
definitely.
So anyway,
Yeah, so like for me personally, like that was like I appreciate it, and I appreciate um, that you reaching out to us the way you did. It's important for me. That's my way I give back to our community, especially reaching out to our youth.
right,
So, yeah, you had a son who was young, very young
yeah,
at the time,
yeah,
and he's behind the walls right now.
mm-hmm.
And I remember we was working on issues and things and trying to prevent him because we understood that that was the track and that what would, potentially he would lead up to, right?
Right,
So
right,
like that was important, and thank God, and I salute to you. I salute to all the mothers and all the supporters out there who are trying to intervene before and recognize and identify these issues so we can help. Because that's where I came in at, right? As
right,
best as, and I don't have the answers or what I mean to the problems and things, but I have personal experience and solutions, and I've been a part of the streets my whole life. So, and
right.
behind the walls, So I understand how this shit goes. So, you as a mother with concern, reaching out to me and trying to figure out and help for your son was definitely important, and I thank you for that.
Absolutely. I'm forever grateful, honestly.
Yeah, for real.
I can't thank you enough. Clifton, can you walk us through a little bit of your history?
Yeah, man.
Just
So, man, like, yeah, uh, one of my mentors have told me is been there, done that. That's what you would explain my history. I come up, separated from my biological parents in the 1980s, underneath the conditions that was going on in our society at that time.
right.
And me and my siblings entered the foster system in New York. And my father was incarcerated and going through that at the same time. But at that time in the 80s, the system kept me and my siblings, pretty close
Hmm.
as far as like while we was in the foster system.
Right.
Eventually, I was adopted at the age of 7. And when I was adopted, I was relocated from Queens, New York to Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So it was definitely like, in the 80s, and for me, like, yeah, I come from it. Like, system is generational,
Hmm.
the whole nine, right?
Right.
So, yeah, at the time when I was adopted, I got on the plane, flew to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and got off at the Albuquerque International Airport.
Uh huh.
And I remember like one of the first things is, my adoptive father was a high-ranking correctional officer in the state of New Mexico.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, me, don't even know at that time, so young, don't even understand, right, what was going on, especially here to a foreign land. Um, you know, I left from the airport and went to his job. I don't know what was going on in their head or what the process was, but I remember like I was adopted with two of my younger sisters, right? And rest in peace, both of them. But the girls went with my adopted mother, and then the boys, So like I remember, how close that is from Los Lunas. So he worked at Los Lunas, and I remember like before me even peeping and understanding what's going on, but understanding what's going on, like this is your family now, this is your adopted, all those things,
Right. Right.
like I already had that competent, like already off the porch type shit, early age.
Right.
So yeah, so my first experience and memories was uh, traveling, getting on the airport from New York. Destination was New Mexico. I didn't even know what New Mexico, even remember the state of the name, but I was adopted and I was going somewhere and with my new adopted family. So I ended up here and I ended up at Los Lunas facility. And I don't know what he was doing inside before I went to my new home and my adopted family. That was my first stop. So, like I said, I was already in it, already off the porch, already fast. So, like I said, I was already, in this shit for real, for real. And the
Right.
first time I got locked up was the age 11, and here in New Mexico. And I was going back and forth between here and New York because I had an older brother who lived in New York, and there was issues and whatever was going on in my family. So maybe the intervention, I don't know, I was younger. But whatever was going on at that time with me and like, knowing and experience, but really young, 11, So I was 11 when I went and got locked up at the first time. That doesn't mean I was already, referrals, cops called, already all that before 11, but I was already in custody, locked up on probation at the age of 11, so out here in New Mexico in the early 90s and coming from a state where it's different, but, I'm foreign
Right.
and experience what was going on in this territory, in this land in the 1990s and the Clinton administration policies and all those different things. The school prison pipeline was real here in New Mexico. So
I
yeah.
feel my son was definitely affected by the school to prison pipeline. I think he's definitely part of that as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, even if like if like me and our experience and like little touching bases, like I remember you coming and your concerns, and like for me and going through like that shit, like I look at your son and similarities because he and it was a little bit different, but the similarities I could connect to the story and what he was going through was like being foreign, being late in the game. Like me, I grew up in the system, juvenile, in and out, locked up to where when I transformed to prison, I was already, that's where we was going, we signed up for this shit. So it was a different thing to
Right.
where, I didn't have parents and have, a mother to where was doing everything and anything to protect, me
right.
and stuff, right, from that, like you were for your child.
Right.
Right. So, like how I related to him is like his late experience and not having that experience of going in and out of the juvenile system to when you came at the table bringing your concerns of what was going on in our city out here in Albuquerque, New Mexico at the time. The shit was crazy.
Right.
Like I remember you was like, man, he has this dude who came out of nowhere from Chicago was claiming to be the
Yes.
Crip.
You remember that?
Yeah,
Yes.
like,
Oh my God.
and I'm like, hold on, like me, I'm in this shit. I'm like, okay, what do you mean? Okay, what? A nigga came from Chicago. And then you like, he's a white boy. And I said, wait, hold on. Right? So I was really highly concerned.
Right.
Right? And then I'm just like trying to, and then like what was going on and the influence that individual had in your son's life.
Right.
Right? So, like that was like for me, like you know what I mean, somebody like you know what I mean, he was going and navigating, and then ultimately, you know. And then I don't know, you know, maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that, on how he was able to, or he got away from the other individual we were talking about that was his influence to the streets, pretty much. You know what I
Right.
mean? You
Yeah.
know?
To be honest with you, I don't even know. I don't even know what took place, how he separated from that group of people. And I think mainly what it was is that he got introduced to another group of people.
Yeah.
So kids like more his age, because if you remember, that guy was older. I think he was like
Yeah, he was older.
like early 20s.
Came out of
Yeah,
nowhere.
yeah.
And had a whole bunch of like 14 and
Yes.
13, 15-year-old
Followers.
little homies.
Yes.
And just came out of nowhere in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I'm like, what's his name? Or where he came from?
Yeah.
What did he say? And I'm like, man, that sounds like typical Albuquerque informant shit.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right.
I'm sorry.
You're not,
Excuse me,
you
but,
can't,
you know.
you're right about that. You're right about that for sure. But yeah, it was crazy. And then, so what, you went into the juvenile detention center, and then from there, did you go into the youth detention center, the YDDC?
Yeah, it's like for me, it was always like the school of prison pipeline. Like I said, I got locked up at the early age, 11, and then it was never a stop. Like once you enter that system, it's a continuation. And then when I grew up, it was okay. I didn't have, you know what I mean? I had the absence of fathers, and they have that in my role models that I looked up to. I wasn't given the information like, hey, stay away from here. More like it's gonna be like a reunion. Like that was destined. I was gonna see you eventually, especially when you're going in and out of, and you're used to that as an early age, juvenile
Right.
facilities and stuff.
Right.
Like eventually, and then just like the stigma and the stuff around it. Like you're gonna go to prison.
So did that become normal for you?
Yeah, it definitely was normal. That's what I'm saying. Like it was normal, and I was okay with that. And that's how we live by this shit. Like you know what I mean? Things we
Right.
did in the streets and the things like, that's what we did. We signed up for.
Yeah. Well, when my son was out in the street, I used to pray, and I'm like, God, just please let him get caught. If he's going to get caught, let him get caught as a juvenile so he's under 18. Because, like, my biggest fear was for him to go to prison. That was my biggest fear was for him to go to prison or for him to end up, passing away.
Yeah.
Like, that's everything that was in my head.
Yeah.
So for me, I was just like, I just want him to get caught as a juvenile. That way he, if he gets in trouble, he can go in and come right back out.
Yeah.
But that unfortunately didn't happen for me or for him because, his crime,
What
he was
ultimately
18.
happened with him?
He was 18 when the crime was committed, and it was robbery and kidnapping, and he got 10 years for that. So
Yeah. So man, that just like refreshment. Like, I mean, I remember now.
yeah,
So like for me, how I relate, like my similarity situation was the same thing. You know what I mean? I was still on juvenile probation when I caught my adult offense, and it was crazy because I was so much on probation. I remember the day that APD raided and had the arrest warrant for me and executed it. Right, was the same date I was released from the D home.
oh my God.
The same exact day. I hadn't even touched grounds to the house yet, right? So I had this whole juvenile proceedings and whatever I was going through at that time. That was a whole different proceedings. But what was going on in the background was the detectives was getting ready and they was executing a search warrant. And so it's like, they already knew I got released and whatever the fuck. But like before I even touched home, they already executed a search warrant and charged me with 2 counts of armed robbery and kidnapping and a few other charges with that, right? So I was on juvenile probation at that time. And then, like, what I recall from that situation was, like, it was crazy because, I was at a restaurant with my mother and my sister, and we were sitting there eating cordially like no nothing, and I remember her getting a call, like, and then the whole mood, everything changed. Like, what's going on? I'm sitting here like, right, what's going on? And then when she hung the phone up, she was like, your dad was like, the police is at the house. They got a warrant for your arrest. They say, well, so I didn't even make it to the house. I already had the up. Like, what? They already, what? I just got out like 10 hours ago. How is that possible? What do you mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so with that, that's what initiated my first offenses and what I was ultimately convicted of on one of them. So I ended up pleading guilty to one of those armed robberies, and it was really more by weight of evidence in the system is what I had to like plead out to because ultimately I had nothing to do with the two armed robberies that I was initially charged with, but they was processing me with.
Right.
Right, and then I was going through that process and arrested. You know what I mean? I remember when they arrested me. Ultimately, when I got arrested, eventually, because it wasn't that day. I remember so I had the juvenile hold. I was still on juvenile probation. I remember having the emancipation, which was the 15-day hold. So like for me, it could have went both ways too. Like because I was still in the jurisdiction of the juvenile system and on probation and parole, and I was a juvenile when the alleged crime was actually committed that they were accusing me of. It could have been processed that way.
Right.
But because I already had been processed through that system and already had gone through that shit in New Mexico for so long, and now I'm being accused and of the age so close to, it was easier for them to make the next move. And that move was to ultimately discharge me from the juvenile system, giving me like a 15-day kick out. And so I remember I was in BCDC and I had 100,000 cash only bond with a juvenile hold, and at the time they could take that, but and a juvenile hold. So I remember being processed to juvenile court first, which ultimately gave me that 15-day kick out, right? And then that 15-day kicked out said, which could have been prosecuted through the juvenile system, we're gonna let the adult system handle you.
Right.
And we're going to give you, in order to do that, you have 15-day sentence and we're releasing it to you to handle whatever. And I remember the prosecutors and even the lawyers, everybody like, man, Your Honor, he's going to prison for, we don't even know how long, but he's going to prison. So like it was definitely, it weighed on the decision that the judge made and when it made to make that decision on to emancipate me, kick me out from their system that I was actively a part of. And like for real. So and then like what's going on, like I remember you like your concerns earlier and like what's going on in Albuquerque with the second chance bill and what's going on, like all those that bill, all those that energy, all that stuff comes from, you know what I mean, my personal experience to my whole life and to my advocacy, you know what I mean. I'm a part. Like I remember me and Celinda, you know what I mean, Celinda out here working in the streets in the community with you guys, me working in behind the walls and in solidarity to the actions and trying to address, you know what I mean, these issues. And across the nation, juvenile detention was being addressed, and the fact life without the parole, or like that the Supreme Court ruling that came down that had precedents that all states was required to address. So here in New Mexico, how we was addressing it, it was like we were leading that. And then unfortunately, and it was crazy because we had, like we introduced it, we had support by a representative who followed it and pushed our bill for us, right? And we passed the first, part of, the process. And then we ultimately had the Democratic Party, our own, individuals we were working with, stall the bill for us, right? And take everything that we were in solidarity across the nation and that was happening in our state. And it didn't pass that year. But then the same party come back and make their adjustments. So ultimately what was passed and what does exist right now as it is in New Mexico. And we have an attorney general who came out with an opinion. It's an opinion, right?
Right.
That's an opinion. Let's get on that.
Yeah. Are you with us, special guest?
Yeah, let's get him the name of Spook. No, like at the end of the day, like I speak and I know how important and free Spook, free them all, free all my brothers, man. Solidarity, so ultimately, I definitely want to, give my brother behind the walls the opportunity to address and what's going on and the fight. And my fight has always been for, for some type of understanding, like justice, whatever that to me is weird. Like I don't even know what that even really means. You know what I mean? But um, I took accountability for my actions. It's different from my brothers behind the wall right now, who's a political prisoner in New Mexico as well, and who maintains his innocence. And the surrounding issues involving his case is is important because I identify in all the corruption, all the manipulation, all the backdoor, you know what I mean, plotting and figuring out on how to go about, you know what I mean, prosecuting me or, you know what I mean, penalizing me or just throwing me underneath the bus and, you know what I mean, disposing of my life. You know what I mean? Like my brother behind the wall, Spook, same thing. His movement and his story is important because, you know, you have law enforcement from the jump who was involved in his case from the jump, and the fact and are victims of his case, right? So the fact that they're law enforcement, right? Everybody has like a blind shit, like no wrong could be done and whatever. And how I identify is I have the corrections department and public officials and you know what I mean, attorney general. Like we can get more into that because I got 3 sheets too and calling them out, right? But we have all these political individuals and I mean politics involved in our case, and they're they're they got their eyes locked on us, and their position is what it is, and they have all the resources and all the money to make us go through this process. So me, I went through my process, and it's been a struggle, and the shit is real. But then, you know, I'm so humble, and I understand that in this world, and there's people who've been in worse situations as mine, and
Right.
struggle and still continue to fight, and that's what Spook is doing, continuing his fight for his innocence and expose and uplift the wrong and the controversy involved in his case that ultimately ended in his situation. So
Yep. Are you with us?
But like, yeah, I'm here. I'm here. Like I was listening to your story because you know it's your time to shine. It's your time to shine. So I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm like, well, I could really. I was born in 1978 on a Burke Tuesday, and I went to the D home in '88. Time to set it straight, you know what I'm saying? You know how stepping from the D home, it was Eastside Locals, Pee Wees, and from there, New Mexico Boys School, Diaper Bandits. From there, you know, I mean, I was, you know, I was 13 in Springer, 17 in the penitentiary, New Mexico Marine.
This call will be terminated in 2 minutes.
I know exactly what you mean when you when you don't have a chance, when you just like wait, you're not sitting there, you're not some mastermind. You're just like wake up one morning and there you are. You know, you're in your cell. This is your life. You know, it's not really about so much about even a conscious choice. It's just like that's just where you're at. You know, and that was my story. That was my story before this whole situation occurred that has me in here today. However, before that situation occurred, I got out. I got out and I got into college. I did my best to turn my life around. I really tried. I can't say that I made every perfect decision, but I did a good job, man. I did a really good job, and I was out there.
This call will be terminated in 1 minute.
Struggling to be a good father, to be a good student, to be a success, to try to be a success story. And, you know, a lot of things, you know, they culminated in a situation. If you don't mind, I'm gonna call right back and I'm gonna tell you guys the story, the reason why I ended up in this situation I'm in today, and why I have to fight for my freedom.
yeah,
Okay.
no doubt. So like for me, that's my giving back. Like that's my giving back to the community, and which was in solidarity. Here in New Mexico, like you know, what I mean, I'm a political prisoner, like so many others. Like my brother, who just you know, and he's in.
Kind of like, is it like the documentary we saw on Friday, the Alabama Solution?
So yeah, and like you know, in Alabama, man, free them all. You know, Alabama is on the level to where like it's unbearable. You know, when I was up there, and I mean on the grounds, and I was marching in the state capitol of Montgomery in solidarity with my brothers. You know, it was crazy for me to comprehend, and I was seeing so many different faces and so many different families, and heard from so many different families from my brothers and my comrades behind the walls. You know, who unfortunately lost their lives, right? And they had over 300, deaths in a year.
Right.
And then you had so many families, and a lot of them by the hands of the police. And then you had families who wasn't even notified of the deaths, and their family members already buried and so on. So like their conditions and their things inside, like we can compare, like we can do this, but like best believe, their conditions, the confinement is far worse from ours.
Oh my God, yeah, that documentary, I was mortified.
Yeah.
Honestly, like it really did a number on me that night, thinking.
Yeah, and for me too, like, I remember like it took me like 3 or 4 times even to watch it, like, because of the trauma and understanding. I'm like, I'm ready to go, like what? So it's like seeing people in my position, and like you had individuals who were 30 days to the door coming home and lost their lives, you know? And so imagine preparing for that. Imagine, having a conversation with your mother or your spouse or your children. Like, next month I'm going to be over there with you and shit. And whatever, we're going to be, reunited and so and so. And then, they're not even informed that you passed or how you passed, or there wasn't even a proper investigation or none of those different things. You ain't even given as a family member, so the shit is real. But here in New Mexico, like, like for me, like right now, what I'm facing, like, like I said, I want to thank everybody who supported and stood in solidarity, Celinda and everybody. Celinda has been there for
Hey, Celinda's on a whole other
yeah, but like
Celinda's like, yeah.
and but like as being a part of my life and going
she
through,
has fought for you
for me.
Yeah.
And then what I'm talking about on deaf ears though, like we went all the way to the Supreme Court of New Mexico prior to the Free Clifton White movement, in which we had different type of power,
right,
and different type of solidarity, not taken away from, like I'm saying, like every court date, everything. We're saying the same thing, right? But it wasn't until the solidarity and the power of the people that ultimately exposed, right, the fact that what I was, and me and Celinda, we were trying to say in 2015 and 16, when I was going through a process of my initial sentence and what I understood and took my responsibility for the actions of my crime, could not have exceeded, like, no way, no nothing. So like when you go do it and you signed up for this shit, okay, cool. Like, nigga ain't had to tell nobody, nigga had to do none of those things. Like I signed, okay, I'm coming home, all right, cool. I'm cool with that. But then when that point comes, now you got to deal with another. And then you don't understand that because that's something that they didn't even tell you, right? To so much, like I didn't even understand it for years. But in solidarity with the people and Black Lives Matter, and shout out to Black Lives, was the movement, was what was the conditions of our country, right? It was the time that was, presented in front of me to expose, right? And what happened, and that ultimately exposed the fact that what me and Celinda were already saying, that there was no jurisdiction for me to be sentenced in 2017 on a probation violation, that the corrections department fabricate documents and hold people past their sentence every day, and that ultimately I'm not the only person. But like the story behind that, and that's the story because we'll get that into a little bit deeper. But there's a story into how I was ultimately released because there was the pressure of the people that required the extra scrutiny from our governor, right? Our governor had to, in an election year, in a Black Lives Matter, in a COVID pandemic, you know what I mean? She had to address something that was never expected to be, you know what I mean? Like, who's Clifton White? She had to hear, she had to feel the people, the power of the people, and that's what brought attention. And ultimately, and that's what, you know what I mean, the politics behind the scenes that people don't really realize is I was walked out the cell like power to the people. My people were behind the walls. Watch, they push a code on me in the middle of the day after the parole board revoked my parole and said, you're crazy and you have time and you're not going to get out. Like, how was I walked out the facility 4 months later? No, because there was validity, there was real issues, and it was real on what was going on, and I was held 4 years past my release date. And making case law right now. So I have active litigation, you know what I mean, from the moment that they actually walked me out that prison and released me, that, I mean, they exposed their own hand. You know what I mean? That, for me, I thought that I was having finality and whatever justice was for whatever, because I took my responsibility. I did all the time. I did all the time and extra time. That's me taking responsibility.
So is all of that, so the 4 years that you're talking about, is that everything that I read with,
Yeah.
with this, that the stuff that you sent me?
Yeah, so
So you fought this for 4 years before
this
they
is
released
5
you?
years.
Oh, 5 years.
So ultimately, listen, and I was released. This is a powerful day. What a day, right? So today is the 5th year anniversary of my release,
Today?
discharge from the corrections department
Oh,
from my
wow.
sentence that you read right now. So from the power of the people in opposition, like I said, you have, like, you know, you, like, that was power. You know what I mean? When, you know, you don't realize, like, for me, like, I'm a, you know, so I have correction on how I deal with them, and been dealing with them is a certain way and how I read. But the power that I had when they returned me back to prison, and then I had all them people with my face and mask and solidarity and demanding to be released and overseeing, like, that was another level. It was another level, like, of power. Because, you know, and I was flexing. I ain't gonna lie. Yeah, and I was flexing.
He said I was flexing.
Yeah, I couldn't wait for one of them bitch ass COs to try to do what it, because you had real, you know, you had real opposition. Like, I had opposition that would walk in or knew, like, the yard would be locked down because I didn't even know y'all was pulling up. But, you know, they try to keep it under wraps, and only people under that knew was what the news was pushing or whatever. But inside the institution, we was on lockdown, so we couldn't see and we had no knowledge. But best believe when them COs was walking past my door or coming on shift, they was trying to shake down my cell or giving me that extra, like, I felt that, but I also felt the solidarity, because there definitely was COs was like, man, y'all, man. So, you know,
Was Diana there?
Diana,
Yes, I was.
definitely
You were
was
there,
you know?
Diana? Can you share with us a little bit of what it was like out there?
It was great. I think there were probably around, I'm guessing, probably close to 30 cars, and we just kept going back and forth and annoying the hell out of the COs.
Yeah,
They were getting so upset.
for real. And I'm in the back of the yard somewhere, or whatever, and it was crazy at the time because, you know, you had the governor's orders of what was it, the what are you talking about, the when it was quarantine.
Uh-huh.
So, man, I'm telling you, our quarantine conditions of confinement in the state of New Mexico. And then, like, for me as a jailhouse lawyer, as an activist, and knowing, we had our governor who was pretending. She was pretending the whole time. Like, and acting, you had states across the country actively addressing the overcrowding, the public health safety emergency, releasing people and paroling people in the mass. And then you had our governor faking the funk and acting and not really addressing. But behind the walls, our conditions of confinement and with the treatment that we were getting from correctional officers was on a whole nother level. And you know, like, I can't even explain that. Like, the public doesn't even know what's going on. So, like, yeah, that time was a time that, man, yeah.
Wow.
But y'all was out there free Clifton White at the same time, so.
Hey, well, I wish I would have been a part of that. I wasn't there, but I wish I would have been a part of
Yeah.
it. That sounds pretty
Pretty
exciting.
cool.
Yeah.
Yes, it was pretty cool.
Are you there, Spook?
Is Spook
Yeah,
come?
I'm here. I'm
Oh,
here.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just listening. You guys.
Okay. Do you want to share with us what you have, what you talked about before the phone disconnected?
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, the reason for my being here in the first place, the reason for the free spook, for all that, all the work that we've been doing on that, all the work that I've been blessed to have people support, caring about me, because that's crazy when when people got shirts with with free you on it,
Yeah,
you know.
that was crazy to me.
That's a crazy feeling. I've been away for a long time. I fell in 2002. Well, okay, this is my story. I was tried and convicted for the murder of a drunk off-duty sheriff, and this happened in 2002 when a group of people, including a New Mexico State police officer and many correctional officers, attacked my friend and tried to choke him to death in the parking lot of a bar. I used the only means available to me, and I stopped this unjustifiable attack. I did everything that I could do so that we could all go home. I mean, me and them. And I just need, I hope that people understand when it's difficult for other people to put themselves in my shoes, but at that point, when I stopped the fight, some people had just beat my friend within an inch of his life, and now, I'm risking my own life by not shooting. So we're backing away. We're trying to retreat from this situation that I didn't really have a choice but to stop. We were attacked again to where I was given the choice of either shoot or give this crazy person the gun. And in a state of rational duress, I shot and killed one of my attackers. After I was arrested, I didn't have the legal knowledge or the money to keep the prosecution honest. The state destroyed or illegally altered all my exculpatory evidence, while my public defender did absolutely nothing to defend me. This misconduct happened. It's important people understand that this misconduct happened for several reasons, which include his death benefits, law enforcement morale, and presidential credibility, because George W. Bush even weighed in on this situation at the time. The state misused considerable resources to manufacture a Good Samaritan narrative that concealed the act of recreational police brutality. And because of those reasons, I needed as much legal help and legal access
This call will be terminated in 2 minutes.
by someone like myself in prison, and that's why I'm speaking on this subject today. That's why I was invited to speak about this today.
Yeah. So, like, for me, the importance and the similarity in our fight, in my brother's case right here, he's breaking down, like, the situation where you have law enforcement who are the alleged victims, right? And because they're the alleged victims, and like so many other cases, on how the politics, how the manipulation, how the investigation, how the prosecution, how the sentence, all those things, all that manipulation was, weighed in so overwhelming that the fact in which we can see what's going on in Albuquerque right
This
now,
call will be
we
terminated
have,
in 1 minute.
it's crazy to me on how many police involved deaths we have in Albuquerque alone, but the state, right? And then how the attention, like the national attention, like on how our state, and how there's no really a national, that's an emergency in itself. Like we have our governor who called a state of emergency. What about us is getting murdered by the police and being framed by the police and fabricated and sent up and all those different things. So like the similarities is the weight of the law enforcement, and because law enforcement had such a heavily involvement in my brother's case, and they were the victims of his defense, his life. You know what I mean? His friend's life. All that was disregarded
Right.
for them to justify their own actions. Their own actions. They started a fight. They was, you know what I mean, brutally assaulting somebody. The self defense. Like how many times we've seen in Albuquerque, you know, how the police are able to just justify somebody that don't even, they know he doesn't have a gun. They'll say a bat. They'll say a knife. He'll be 100
Yep.
yards from him, but they're able to justify them shooting him 50 times, 100 times, right? Because they say he charged at police and he was a threat or whatever. What about when they are threats? You know what I mean? And that's just real. How many people are being freed in this country, especially down south? You know what I mean? I work with a lot of my brothers behind the walls in South Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, like all over, and like the Jim Crow laws, the 10-2, all the, you know what I mean? All those things that played into part of their life sentences and their conviction. And, you know, and that was all in favor for law enforcement. And you know what I mean, the injustice that it does to family members, mothers, the separation, like all that's by design, the attack on, and I mean, people of color. You know what I mean? They're trying to dispose of us, and like it's just society. So that's the similarity. Like for me, like you was touching on, like for me, like I'm in active litigation. Like we was touching bases. Like these individuals held me 4 years past my sentence. This is what happened. This is not a question. Did this happen? This absolutely happened. I had to have a district court order that ordered the invalidation of my confinement, in which when they chose to attack me during the Black Lives Matter, and you seen the video in Celinda's, and thank God for that video because we had no other evidence.
I don't know about the video.
So the day that I was arrested on this alleged parole violation, right? This is like, so we So what happened was New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico was in solidarity, and we was the third city in the nation to take the streets in solidarity after George Floyd was murdered by the police, right? So in Albuquerque, we had two federal law enforcement stings going on when the majority of the nation had one, and that was Relentless Pursuit and Operation Legend. And most cities had one or the other, but Albuquerque had two. And we already had a lot of, plenty of, tactics used by them to, attack our community and lock us up continuously. We've been exposing those for years. But when they killed George Floyd, we took the streets, me and Celinda, we were key organizers in solidarity with other organizers, but we were definitely the key organizers in addressing the location that we picked in our city to have that protest in 2020. And we took the streets from Central and Wyoming to pretty much Central and San Mateo, and we led in solidarity. But
Can
it
I
was,
chime in?
yeah. Go ahead.
Whenever that happened, see, my case occurred in 2002. When that happened, no one wanted to believe or was willing to believe that there's going to be police out there just like hunting people, just like for no reason trying to like why? Because why would they? They're cops. Cops don't do that shit. So when this happened, the mountain that I had to climb to get any credibility was just too much. It was insurmountable for me. And now, in this era, after the George Floyd situation happened, and the world started to realize that these things do happen, now I have the best chance probably ever to be heard, because now people understand that it actually could happen. And I'm really thankful for that movement and for that for everything that was done because of that, to call attention to the problem that has been going on for a long time out here in this state as well. I mean, it's not like that we don't have similar situations. And I just appreciate you guys for going out there and calling attention, helping to call attention to this.
Yeah, no doubt. So like you just touched bases and we had similar situations, and what people don't realize what was going on in New Mexico prior to the death of George Floyd, rest in peace, was we had a similar situation here in New Mexico earlier in that year, and that was in our county jail facility. And rest in peace, Vicente. You know, Vicente Valera was killed by
Yeah,
the
he got killed.
correction officers, and those correction officers at MDC were ultimately tried but acquitted. But it was because of the work that we did in the exposing, because the corruption. You gotta realize the corruption and the cover up that was happening before we brought to light and attention in to our public and our comrades what was really going on, right? And because we did that, you know what I mean, ultimately it led to a prosecution of officers, which they ultimately was found not guilty, right? They stood there, you know, whatever. But the corruption, the cover-ups, the you know the use of force, the law, like my bro was saying, like nobody could believe, like no, that's what happens every day, like they you know, and by force, you know. So this shit is real, man, and like you know, I'm definitely thankful. Like my bro said, thank God, rest in peace. But because of the George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement, my case also, like my bro was speaking about, what got the attention and the publicity and the focus in which I've been screaming, like Spook been screaming for 20 something years himself and trying to bring to light. For me, my sentence ended. So like my situations are a little bit different than his is because my convictions ultimately resulted in me taking a plea agreement and his resulted in a trial, right? Maintaining his innocence and his
Right.
defense. Me, I took responsibility for my stupid ass actions and the way I was moving and pled guilty, but had an understanding of certain thing and was okay with that. But when these law enforcement and correctional officers and classification officers started manipulating documents, falsifying parole violation, um, mis uh, misrepresenting sentence service time, providing false information to the courts, to which ultimately resulted in me being confined longer
Right.
than I was supposed to. Probation court in New Mexico. You know how many probation violations I went in front of? And at that time, I was screaming, "Hey, hey, hey, man! What y'all about to sentence me? This ain't right." And didn't like no public defender, no, they didn't care. All they wanted to hear was whether I violated these conditions of probation and parole or not, right? And that for me, for somebody who's poor, who's been incarcerated the majority of his life and going in and out of prison and don't have the means or the necessary funding to purchase or you know what I mean, obtain proper counsel who can articulate the real and fight for me in a different interest than the public defender.
To buy your due process, to buy
Shit's
your
real.
guaranteed due process.
Yeah, like the shit is real, like you know. So like I actually thank you and Diane, man, like y'all women, like the women, you know. I salute all day long because I've been behind the walls, man. So I know who they call in on the phone with, hey mama, and, you know, and y'all holding it down, like you know what I mean. Y'all have some sons, y'all have some like y'all riders. So like for me, like I didn't personally
You know,
have that experience of somebody that supported me, whether they would go broke and put up their house, like none of the extent that you guys go for y'all. I ain't had that, so like, you know what I mean, I salute to y'all for real.
Thank you. That means a lot, Clifton. Thank you.
so yeah, I appreciate you, man. I think I misspoke a minute ago. I'm not sure if it was Vicente Vielas or Vicente Villegas, but because that story really, you know, it's not as easy to remember as George Floyd because you know it's one of those situations where nobody, you know, there wasn't nobody really cared. You know, it was just a little like a blip on the news. It wasn't really nothing. And when my situation happened, it was like Like me and my friend, we were reduced to mug shots. You know, they turned us into to a couple of mug shots, and they got this guy's picture. You know, he had the American flag behind him. You know, he had the uniform on, and so like automatically, you know, my credibility was gone. I didn't have it was me against this image of what a police officer is supposed to stand for, and I couldn't argue that. That was like how would they do something like that? They would never do something like that, and yeah, so what I'm saying is, like, when you're in a situation of being a have-not, when you're in a situation of being of having to basically agree to whatever they give you, whatever they're willing to offer, because the system, you know, most of the people in this place take plea bargains. Like 97 some percent of criminal defendants take plea bargains because that's what the system's designed to do. And since we don't go to trial very often. When those few of us that do, we don't have very good. You know, they're going to make an example out of you, guilty or innocent.
Most definitely. There definitely is. So, man, I appreciate it. Well, I see some things highlighted over there. What you got highlighted?
I was going through your some of the paperwork that you had sent me, and there was some things in here that I was just like blown away, and I thought I want to kind of touch on them a little bit. On your summary of arguments, it says Mr. White could not file a wrongful imprisonment lawsuit against who detained him pursuant to that order until the sentence judge overturned the order and discharged him in October of 2020. Moreover, because Mr. White was detained until October 2020, the statute of limitations on a wrongful imprisonment claim does not accrue until his release under the restatement of torts.
Man.
Can you elaborate on that for us a little bit?
Man, I got so much anxiety and so much PTSD. Yeah, so all right. So my case is in the 10th Circuit, right? And the 10th Circuit, a Court of Appeals. This case law. This is controlling case law. So what you just broke down was my argument, right? And my argument to them now is on appeal. And I'm on appeal now because the 10th Circuit had an earlier prior ruling in my case, White versus Tafoya, Lucero, right? 10th Circuit. It was like published and filed in April of this year. And in that, you know, what the 10th Circuit did was reverse the Court of New Mexico's prior ruling. And in that prior ruling, Judge Strickland of New Mexico Federal Courts, which is also case law until it was reversed, right? So it was President case law in New Mexico, Strickland's ruling. And what Strickland did in my case, like I said, I was held 4 years over detention. And shout out to my lawyers and all, like I said, all the supporters. But like this shit was, it's hard to articulate, break down, and it's been a fight, you know. So we came to a point, and in that point, what Strickland did was make a ruling on all defendants, right? Defense, and their defense was qualified immunity, meaning that they were acting in their official capacity and they're immune to be held liable for whatever actions. And their actions in my case was personal knowledge, participation, or, you know what I mean, failing to act. And we're talking about warden defendants and so and so. Like I said, Alicia Tafoya, who's our Secretary of Corrections right now. Man. So, like, yeah, right now. So I want people to do is, like, yeah, we got the blueprint, right? So we have the Corrections Department's position. We got my position. All positions was laid out. And now we only have one position that really matters, and that's the courts. So the courts is going to tell us. So I don't have to guess. I don't have to figure out whatever. Whatever the courts are saying in this case laws is what it is. Period.
Right.
Right? So what these defendants are, Secretary of Corrections, these warden defendants, who had personal knowledge and could have done something, could have, we're screaming. Celinda's screaming, I'm screaming. And we had conversations. They knew. I was being held past my sentence, right? That I was, that there was actually a court order that ultimately returned me to the corrections department, right? And what they were doing was saying, we have a valid court order, right? But this valid court order only exists based off of your invalid information that you presented and advised the court when asked. Because the court asked you, right? Probation officer, the DA asked you in all these positions where I'm screaming in probation violations, hey, y'all about to sentence me to prison, there ain't no more time left. What are y'all talking about?
Right.
They didn't care. They didn't care. And they did that. And when they did that in 2017, resulted in my probation violation, it resulted in a recommitment. And in my case, I only been sentenced one time. One sentence. One conviction, right? And ultimately, all the charges that I pled guilty to, I served in its entirety. And there was no more time left. But their practices, they're intentional, because like years.
Can you share with us what that feeling is like, sitting behind those walls knowing that you should be a free man and they held you there?
Man, I still have the trauma, and I still deal with it. But the feeling for me, I'm a fighter, so it motivated me to continue fighting. I didn't really learn nothing in the educational system. I grew up in special ed, learning disabilities. It was like they was talking to foreign languages, so I didn't even really know how to
It's
read.
like that too.
I didn't know how to read
Yeah.
and write. How they was teaching and forcing me, I was like, whatever. So illiterate. So illiterate all the way up until the time I took this plea agreement. I didn't even know what the fuck he was talking about. Right, that matters, right?
Right.
So, but I understood a little bit. But then when my understanding, veered, it sparked a fire in me. I'm like, hold on. So I learned how to read. I learned how to write. I became a jailhouse lawyer. I started fighting. I started figuring out policy. Everything is I was just going with the price of whatever they said, release date, whatever. What it was. That's their job. And I let them do their job until I didn't have no more understanding. And then when I started asking questions, the people whose responsibility and job was telling me things. So now I was believing. But then when they were not making sense, or I would get transferred to another facility, and then I asked this caseworker I seen last week, and then I got transferred in the middle of the week. Now I have a new caseworker. So then I asked this new caseworker the same thing in the process I asked the last caseworker, and the new caseworker said some different shit, blew my mind. What?
Yeah, that is exactly what it's like. Yes.
That's what it's like. It's like don't even.
It's like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing.
Driving you crazy, making you feel crazy. Like I said, it wasn't for the Black Lives Matter movement, Celinda, that attention that it brought to my case. We was doing it. We were screaming this shit for years, and we was falling on deaf ears with my illiterate, my no money jailhouse lawyer. I was petitioning the courts trying to get some type of remedy and was losing. So it felt like I was losing, but I didn't give up because I knew.
But you kept fighting.
I kept fighting.
You kept fighting.
Yeah, so it felt like hell. That's the answer to your question. It felt like hell.
Just like Spook keeps fighting.
Yeah, keep fighting, bro. So yeah, that's most important thing, So for me, and I want to elaborate more and we can definitely continue. And I definitely want to like break down like what the Free Clifton White movement really did, what this litigation really means, right? This just came out last week, so it was definitely important for me to come and speak, and I've been waiting, you know what I mean, for this opportunity, but and I'm thankful. But
I have a question for you
yeah.
guys. How do you think the system should change to prevent cases like yours from happening again?
Spook, I'll let you answer that first.
I would say there needs to be people that are willing to police the police. There needs to be when a situation happens that involves law enforcement, it shouldn't be investigated by people that are going to just like automatically cover up for law enforcement, because that's what they do. That's like the thing. And so you go into that, if you're in a situation where it's going to be your word against theirs, and it's a crime. The alleged or real victim in the situation is a law enforcement person. We need to have like scrutiny, extra scrutiny, to make sure that people aren't stacking the deck. You know,
Right.
that's one thing that I think that would prevent situations like mine.
Yeah. Like for me, I think that conversations like this, platforms like this, bringing awareness, educating, hearing from peers and people who have similar situations or been through the process, learning from them and their experience and their fight, and so on how like for me my theme it ultimately is like right now with my attorneys in my position right now, and it's took a long point for me to get to this point, but right now I think that we executed my argument to where I'm okay with it no matter where it went. And the reason why I'm okay with it is because I'm okay with the blueprint, because I got the blueprint. Here we got the blueprint. We got where the corrections department and law enforcement, whoever people who did wrong, these motherfuckers did wrong by holding me 4 years over my sentence. These individuals did wrong by engaging in the conduct that they engaged in with my brother that ultimately led to him being behind the walls, but don't have no accountability,
Right.
right? So it takes
I do commend. I want to say that I do commend you, because a lot of people end up in a situation where they could have a lawsuit or they could have some kind of action, and they get out and just drop it. That's what happens like 99% of the time. People get out and they just forget everything that they were trying to accomplish while they were in here, and that's why nothing changes. And I commend you for holding on and continuing.
Yeah, and it's not just me. And I had leaders, and you done the same thing. We caught our cases around the same time. But I had leaders, and I had big homies and elders who assisted me in that process and showed me to continue and fight. Like, how many people do you have behind the walls who's trying to seek an appeal or something? That's a fight. How many people behind the walls do you have going through grievance process and lost good time and whatever the fuck it is, excuse my language, but whatever it is to address and combat and defend themselves against the police, the administration's argument, and whatever force that they want to bring, which is always like violence, state violence. Like it's violent to hold you past your sentence or to hold leverage. Like I said, they utilize good behavior or whatever. But then when you're going through these process and you have a process to where a decision is made, whether it affects whether you stay in prison longer or you get released. Like that decision is real. So the people who are in charge of making those decisions can't have, like my bro was saying, the interest of protecting uh, themselves, the police or the law institutions or their interests. You know what I mean? Whether it's bed space like New Mexico and and the corrections department utilizes the corrections department controls New Mexico's prisons, right? Probation and parole, parole violations, them retakes, the non-approved parole plan, all that shit, all that stuff has a weight on the requirements of bed space, the mandates. That's how they balance. Like you got top of the notch POs, they'll have the meeting and stuff. You think they'd be like, okay, we're under quota this month, so if y'all have any
Oh my God.
parolees who hiccup wrong, if they didn't even call you today, you better violate their ass because and that's exactly what they're doing to keep these things up, and that's why our state has, you know,
Well, another
That's
thing,
why they should be
that
separated
a
from
lot
the
of the times,
corrections department.
exactly. Yeah, all those things, man.
another thing that happens is that a lot of the time people have a lawsuit. There's a lot of class action lawsuits that people settle out of, and they just as soon as they sign those papers, the Department of Corrections goes right back to whatever it was doing to begin with.
Hey,
Like I don't care. I mean, whether it
yeah,
has to do
you
with
absolutely right, bro.
getting
So
out
like,
or it has with canteen.
yeah, you're absolutely right. So, like, to touch base back on what Kim was talking about earlier, or we was talking about earlier, when the Attorney General's new opinion, right? It definitely should be a class action lawsuit, and that's what it's going to take to attack their position, because it's only an opinion. What happened was his opinion, and his opinion is tough on crime, tough on juvenile. This is a second chance. Like, y'all got to pay attention to the language of the bill.
Yes.
The bill was designed for second chances,
Yep.
period. Like, that's the important. So any politician or anybody supported it, was passed through our legislators. So it was plenty of support for it.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on and what's happened what's happening right now from our Secretary of Corrections, not Secretary of Corrections, but from our Attorney General, is he weighed in and didn't have to. He could have played it neutral, but he chose to weigh in the little, like a year's election politics. He plays politics role, right? Everybody out here is tough on crimes, and
My friend said it's political theater.
it's political theater, real stuff, right? So he's over there trying to be tough on crime, right? And the only way he could do it is like he's given the corrections department the position to do what they did, because they had a response to his response, and their response was, let's lock everybody up who we just released that had a life sentence, because now we're going to interpret whatever his opinion was, and we're going to practice on this shit. And that's what it's a practice. It's not even law. It's administrative practice. And how long is it going to take us to wake up to their practice? 10 years? How many people are not going to be able to be released for us to be like, this is unconstitutional, or this is like...
Oh, it's frustrating.
Yeah, so...
It's, Michael and I had a conversation about that, and I was telling him I would be, as a mom, I looked at that. When I read it, I literally read it as a mom, right? And I'm thinking to myself, one of the people that was released under that bill just bought her first home. I watch her rebuilding her life. I watch her on Facebook, and Diana, I'm sure you watch her as well. And to think, if I was her mother and somebody would just come and pull the rug from underneath her when she's rebuilding her life and contributing the things that she's contributing to our community, and they would just pull the rug under her and send her back.
Yeah.
For their,
their interest.
Yeah.
That's their interest.
Yeah.
Their interest is locking us up. Yeah.
Keep every prison full.
I want to give my bro a little opportunity, and we definitely gonna have more, and we can elaborate more. I want to utilize this opportunity, like this is a building. It's definitely it's hard for me to come on here, and like a lot of my brothers, like we have so many people and so many stories, but in fear of retaliation, because we know that's real and that's what they're gonna do. They can't even speak and come up, but they don't feel like it's real. They feel retaliation is real, and they know they're gonna come. If they say some real stuff on platforms like this or things like that, it's in their interest is not to say nothing and just fall back. But we don't learn from that.
No.
We can't move and even support them, because for me and my situation, like I was in those shoes, and like it's been so many years, and when you have a lot of organizing done, but just because I was on probation and parole, that you don't see my face, because I refuse to even be recorded or anything like that because of the retaliation. So we have to be able to continue to speak up and uplift, and I thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, I've gotten a few messages from people before that, have said, "Aren't you afraid of retaliation and talking about all that stuff?" And I'm like, "No,
No,
I'm not.
that's
I'm really
power.
not.
Power
I'm
to
not
people,
afraid
yeah.
of it." Yeah. Before we close, I want to go to Diana for a minute,
Yeah,
and I
most
just
definitely.
want to ask her, as a mother of a son that is incarcerated and is doing a life sentence on everything that we spoke about tonight on corruption. I just want you to share a few words with us regarding that.
Oof. Well, it's been interesting. It's been a very long, hard struggle. 23 years now, and it's kind of amazing. All of the things that they did in his case were so. I mean, it was. They planted evidence. They destroyed evidence. They altered evidence. They, did everything they could. They were determined he was going down. There was no way about it. He was going down. They had made sure that he was going to go down. And it was just, I mean, it's been all of the things. It's so political. It's so political. Even the last hearing he had, even though the judge admitted that there was brutality involved, he still refused to overturn the conviction for whatever reason. I don't know why. I don't know why, but it was, I feel like the whole thing has been political. And I feel like I'm sick of it. But we fight and we get these bills together. Like you were talking about the police oversight. We had that awesome bill. We had that really good bill. Do you remember, Clifton, a
Yeah,
couple of years ago?
yeah.
We had that one with the ombudsman for the prisons and stuff, and they could go into the prison without announcing themselves and just inspect it, because now the way it works is if they're going to go inspect a prison, they give them like a 2-week notice. So they get all the prisoners out painting walls and cleaning up and painting over the mold, and then they feed them good for one day, you know,
Yep.
and then it all goes back to what it was. And if they had someone, if they didn't have to uh, go and give them notice to let them know that, these people were coming to inspect, if they could just go boom and see what it's really like in there. And there were, it was an awesome bill. And I'm really hoping we can get that one in front of legislature again with maybe a few alterations, but it also held the police accountable for stuff that they did. So I don't
As
know.
they
I'm
should.
hoping,
As
yeah.
they should. Well,
As they should, yes.
I just want to thank you guys tonight sitting here and sharing your stories and sharing the struggles and the corruption and just everything around that. I think it's important for our community to be aware. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can I say one thing before it's
Yes.
over? I just wanted to say that. Well, first of all, I mean, not to argue, not to argue, but if you don't feel it's good for one day, they feel it's good for one meal.
There you go.
But
Cold bologna?
One meal.
as the thing we were talking about that my mom just brought up is they ruled that the police brutality, the brutality of my case was not in question. So they admitted to the brutality happening, but they said that was not the question. And the other thing they said was it didn't matter how they handled the evidence. And what that means is it doesn't matter that they spliced out a piece of a videotape, a security tape, to remove scenes of their guy doing illegal stuff, committing brutality, committing like trying to kill a guy. So that was it. I just needed to clarify those things for the people that are listening. The other thing that there was a question earlier that my brother Clifton asked me, and he said something about how it was what Kim had asked us about, like what we need to do. Well, part of the thing that we need to do I believe is to vote. Is to people out there that hear this stuff, understand understand that okay, for instance, one of the things is the people that interpret the law, the 10th Circuit is the worst. This circuit in New Mexico is one of the worst circuits in the country when it comes to things like prison reform. And so we need to have people in the legislature that are making good laws to protect us and not passing like these half-hearted things that get taken away. And I just want to thank you guys for giving me a little time to say my piece.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, and that's definitely and I definitely support it. You know, in New Mexico we have we fought for the right to participate in and voting. So if you are somebody behind the walls who, you know what I mean, going through disciplinary proceedings and wrongful terminations of good times, or, you know what I mean, anything unjust behind the walls, or somebody behind the walls who's fighting for appeals and have sitting judges, and make these that apply these policies, or, you know what I mean, holdings, and have this practice of doing whatever they're doing. You know what I mean, for us, you know what I mean, who have been convicted as, you know what I mean, convicted felons, you know, to be able to participate in elections and have a voice, it's important. Like that's what we're fighting for, like, period. So I definitely support all of us getting out there. We actually have our right to vote here in the state of New Mexico. We fought for that. So if you have my advice to anybody who's returning, any returning citizens in the state of New Mexico, to participate in elections. And if you have any if you have any issues, any problems in that process, you know what I mean, come contact, let us military prisoners know. We want to hear on what those issues are. We actually have active litigation right now because of what's been going on behind the walls, and the Secretary of Corrections and the Corrections Department, along with the Secretary of State, oppressing our right to vote, and not following the actual statute that exists as it is, which allows us to participate.
Right. That's awesome. Thank you.
Pay attention to your candidates. Pay attention to your candidates, and pay attention to when they're on these platforms. Pay attention to what they're saying. I'm smart enough not to endorse anybody. I already know what would happen if I were to do that. So I'm just saying it's on you guys to go out there and pay attention to what people are saying and what they're not saying.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for joining.
I can't wait to get back
And as
on.
always, it's voice to power, right?
Yeah, can't wait for the next one. We get more into it, though.
Awesome.
Yeah. Appreciate
And
it.
thank you, Kim.
Peace.
Thank you.
Bye,
Of course.
Diane. All right, Spook, man. Free them all, man. Free them all, man. Thank you.
Yes.
Freespook.com. Freespook.com.
Yes, sir.